Hi and welcome. How should we define the future of media literacy in its theory and application? That is what we're going to talk today. To shed light on that subject is going to be Dr. Jeff Scher. Um, Jeff's a faculty advisor at UCLA's Teacher Education Program. He teaches at the Graduate School of Education and Information Studies at UCLA. He's an author of 4 books, and he's a prolific writer of articles on media literacy, climate change, and related topics. Um, he's been an award-winning photojournalist, traveled worldwide. In fact, he's taught worldwide as well. And he holds a PhD in education and information studies at UCLA. Welcome, Jeff. It's great to see you again.
Nice to see you again. Thanks.
So if you want to jump straight into the question, the broad question that we have in front of us. And before that, I must apologize. I can never do justice to your background in the short time that we have. Folks can go and visit your website as well. But the question we have in front of us today is, how should we define the future of media literacy in its theory and its application? So if you would take it away.
Great. Thank you so much. It's a great question. And I think we need to start by just thinking of what is the purpose of education? Because ultimately, media literacy is about education, right? It's about building critical thinkers, about helping everybody, all our citizens, global citizens, be able to participate in the world, in democracy, in making the world a better place. And when we think about the purpose of education, there have been many different purposes, and there still are in many different situations. Oftentimes, one of the kind of dominant purposes of education is to reproduce society, to make sure the way society is today will continue to be that way in the future. And that idea of social reproduction brings with it some positive things, but it also means also reproducing the problems. And I think it's really important to recognize the power that education has. It can be used, and it has been used many times, as a tool of control and manipulation, as a way of maintaining obedience and social order for the powerful to be able to continue with their lifestyles and interests. And it's also been used to do the opposite, to disrupt and to create a better world, and to challenge the problems, and to promote social justice, and empowering people to be able to have better lives and improve the world. So recognizing the purpose of education, I think, is a very important first step. And when we think about media literacy and media education, we need to be asking, what is our purpose? Are we just trying to make schools, more culturally relevant? Are we just trying to make learning more fun and engaging? Are we just trying to improve what's already going on? Or are we trying to truly transform education and transform society to be better, to be more socially just, more environmentally sustainable? And that's why I frame my work as critical media literacy, because I think bringing in the critical component is really important, because oftentimes media education is done in ways where it does not do that. And so an aspect of critical media literacy is questioning the role of power and domination, and asking questions about, well, who's benefiting, who's being hurt by this? Mm-hmm. Recognizing that education is always political and that media are never neutral. So I think by framing our discussion about media education and its roles and its purpose, we can move towards an idea of learning that's humanistic, that's compassionate, that's based on ideas from people like Paulo Freire, John Dewey, Bell Hooks, people who have worked for many years theorizing the importance of creating a better, more caring, loving society. And now more than ever, with the climate crisis, the way it's increasing and becoming the number one existential threat to humanity, that needs to be part of the equation as well. We need to be helping students make sense of what's happening to our planet, what's changing everything in our lives, and will only continue unless drastic changes are made. And this is where students need to be part of that solution.
I want to come to that part in a minute. You said something about disruption. I found it very fascinating how you said that education can be the carrier of the social order that structures want the society to be, and at the same time, if we will it, it can also be the disruptor of those social orders because something needs to change. And so I start wondering if media literacy in that sense is meant to be the disruptor, and if so, and of course, as critical media literacy proponent yourself, do you see that as something that would disrupt the order of, for example, the news institutions?
So it all depends on who's doing it and how they're doing it, right? NATO has put out a paper promoting their version of media literacy, which is not going to be a disruptor. I mean, they're all about maintaining, Western capitalist, private commercial corporate interests, right? But depending on how we teach and what we try to do, where our goal, where we're working to move our students towards,
right,
will determine very much what type of education they're getting. It could be a top-down idea where we're just pushing forward our ideas on them, and that's not critical, that's not democratic. Or it can be something where we're really helping students understand their own powers, understand the importance of caring for each other and building a social network of compassion and justice.
mm-hmm.
And that's the role that I feel that critical media literacy really tries to promote, is this idea of how do we really support our students to work with them, alongside them,
Mm-hmm.
in solidarity to improve the world and to find ways where we are one another influence. We're not, media literacy will never be the only thing. It's never going to be powerful enough to change anything without connecting and working with communities, community-based organizations, and building movements and solidarity towards a more transformative, more progressive worldview.
Right. And that's interesting to me, again, because it leads to the question that as a change maker in a society, what can media literacy do? And you rightly said, I think, that it can change everything. So therefore, is the future of media literacy in investing in specific areas of that kind of literacy? For example, your own interest has been in ecology and climate change. Do you see that being cast in terms of media literacy, not just in terms of information about the climate change, but you seem to be alluding to the fact that climate change needs to seep into the very scaffolding, or probably the framework of how education actually should happen.
I don't think climate change should seep into the framework. I think just the awareness of it, right? And the understanding of our role in this, understanding the inequality of how environmental issues are impacting certain groups worse than others, and understanding the inequality of who's responsible. And all of these are ways of just really supporting students to think critically, getting them, like I was saying, to ask the questions about who's benefiting and who's being hurt by this. And then ultimately, what can we do about it? Vivian Vasquez does wonderful writing about critical literacy, even with very young children. And she talks about kind of three ideas. When a student brings the problem to a teacher, the teacher can simply just answer their question and say, well, yeah, that's how it is. And that's not empowering at all. The second idea is the teacher can say, oh, wow, well, what do you think? And it's a little bit better because now we're encouraging the student to reflect on it. But she says, ultimately, a truly progressive teacher replies to the student with, what can we do together to solve this problem? And I think it's in that process of joining with our students where we can really help them and work alongside this notion of building solidarity, building coalitions, which is what it's going to take to make any type of change in the world. Because individually, there's very little we can do, but collectively, there's a tremendous amount we can do.
So critical media literacy, therefore, is a potential branch of critical literacy itself, and critical, for example, pedagogy, is something that I'm hearing from you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right. This is nothing new. We have not invented the rock here. This is part of age-old ideas of teaching and learning and dialogue and democracy that I think right now is using the term media literacy, but we don't even need these labels. I mean, basically, these labels often end up being more divisive than supportive. But it's built on these ideas of critical theory, critical teaching, critical pedagogy, cultural studies, all these different areas that have been engaging with these ideas for ages.
Wonderful. Regrettably, we've got to conclude this right now because you're out of time, and I hate this part, but thank you so much, Jeff, for sharing your insights on the future of media literacy.
Thank you very much. It was a real pleasure.